The Simply Be Found Huddle, where Dean and Rob talk about everything business and marketing related. We are the co founders of Simply Be Found, and we try to keep things simple and straightforward for the common business owner. Dean, how are you today?
I'm well, Rob. How about yourself? It's good to have a conversation like normal and talk about
It,
some of the
it,
things that are going to happen with our members, if you will,
well,
and,
it is.
and business people.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on inside of the digital marketing world. And one of the things is we're kind of building the show up that we have to kind of find that balance as to where you and I get to have these conversations that we don't have a guest on because there's a lot of stuff that's changing out there. There's a lot of pieces inside of the voice search networks that have been major changes. Apple's making a ton of changes. We talked the other day about Facebook making changes inside of there, but the way everything is doing. And what I'm seeing a huge update to come across all the different networks is the amount of security that's coming in. I see a layer of security coming to how local listings are going to happen, which is going to kind of change our whole entire dashboard in some aspects coming up because we're going to have to do those verifications and we're going to have to share that information over. But that's going to make it to where you can lock your business profile with a service like Simply Be Found a lot easier than you could before. Have you heard me talk about anything about that
Yeah,
while I'm diving into all this?
well, we've been talking about it with our aggregation process. That some of the networks are starting to change some of the requirements because what's happening is it keeps people, provides a level of security for everybody's business. So somebody can't go in and do a duplicate name or change things without your permission. Or if you decide that you want to move on somewhere else, it protects you from having changes. That's what I'm hearing from what I'm hearing from your because you talk uh, to our engineers more than I do, and so they're seeing things and prepping for some of this stuff. Is that what the conversation
Yep.
that you want to go
Yep.
down?
Yep, there's a lot of stuff coming through. So, I mean, what we're seeing is we're seeing where like Apple Maps is going to require some verification pieces. It's not. I don't think it's going to be as detailed and as horrible, I think, is what Google has done. But there's going to be some changes because there has to be some locks on this piece. You have to have that security side. I mean, inside of the security world for IT in general, there's so many different emails that are spam emails that are coming through. There's a ton of fraud happening right now. And we're seeing that inside the local listings as well. There's different services that haven't went through the checks. And that's why we became a data aggregator versus just becoming someone who's going to go out and use, a service like Yext or Sign Up or any of those guys that are just going out and they're paying for those spots because we want to provide a true organic piece. So as each network updates everything, we're going to be updating each of our members of letting them know, hey, this is what we need from you, or this is how this process is going to work. But I think this is a really good piece because it allows us to really put a good data lock on each profile, which is going to give that level of security and that level of insurance over to not just the network, but also to our members at the same time.
I agree with you 100%. And we're already seeing that on some of the social networks out there, like Facebook and Instagram, have already implemented some of those processes where you have to say, I want to continue, I want to renew the permissions, that kind of thing. We don't know what everybody else is going to look like, but we've already seen that already be implemented. And even on LinkedIn, you're starting to see this verification thing that they're saying gives you more credibility, supposedly. It doesn't have anything to do with our aggregation process on that one, but they're trying to do is make it so that you're the real person, you're the person you're giving authorization out, and somebody can't hijack your information. And I think that's what you're talking about in particular, correct?
It is. And I think it's an important layer that has to be talked about because I think it's one of those things to where your business data has so much value into it. And if it's used correctly, by going out to each of the networks, it's going to be a great way for you to be able to grow your business, especially in an organic spot. It keeps spider webbing out. It's a huge web of how everything's done. And we're going to try to keep that as simple as we possibly can for doing that side. But I just want to make everybody aware there's a bunch of updates that are getting ready to happen. We have some major updates that are going to happen to the dashboard as well, which I'm super excited and twisted about because we get that feedback from our members. And that's a very important piece is that all of our development is driven by feedback that we hear. So we work with lots of agencies. We work with lots of small business owners. We work with enterprise. We work with all kinds of different varieties of different teams and different just business owners that are not tech savvy at all. And that's where we get our feedback for how we keep everything inside of our dashboard and how we build new tools as well.
I agree with you. And I know that sometimes business owners get a little frustrated that, oh, I just did this upgrade and now we're going to do another one. I think now, in my opinion, or maybe, we just talk about it a little bit, is the artificial intelligence, the AI piece out there, this, the data collection, is that driving some of this a little bit? Because they're fine. Yeah, is that what's really kind of driving it in your opinion, or do you think it's something else going on?
I think so. I think there's a lot to be said for the AI side that's coming in, and this is going to be different than a lot of our other updates. There was updates that we did huge shifts, so we did that huge shift this last time. So anybody who went through that shift with us and had to re-enter their information, don't worry, you're not going to have to re-enter your information inside of this new system. So I want to make that clear and just kind of put that out there because it's not something you're going to have to do. That last shift that we did is we got rid of Google because Google's dead as we know it. And we really redid how we do Google and we've reworked out what those flows are. That's going to be part of this update. We're going to bring Google back, but it's not going to be our main product. Because what a lot of people were seeing out there is that they would have their Google business profile. So our last platform that we had and that big update was very reliant on Google. Well, the problem is it was limiting you on the rest of the networks, then it was hurting you. So we kind of reversed engineered all of that and did that. So this is not going to be that kind of update, but it's going to be a big update, but they're not going to have to do that side.
Right.
And I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be AI driven that's inside of there, ways that you can be able to work with your marketing coach, the ways that you can be able to do every piece inside of the system. That's all going to have a huge update on it, which I'm super excited about.
I am too. And when we originally started this whole thing, Google was a lot bigger player. I mean, there's still a major player out there. Let's be realistic. But but they used to have almost 70% of the market on searches and all that stuff, and we've seen that drop now significantly over the last couple of years, and that's part of the reason why we made the pivot we did. Because I don't even know where they're at now. Last time I looked, they had about 38% of the business searches. I mean, and but
It depends on which division of Google, because you have multiple divisions of Google. You've got Bixby, you have all their voice search networks that are tied to it. You have Google Mobile, you have also YouTube, and then you have Real True Google Search. And then you also have their AI side. So their AI is called Gemini, and that's a big piece, and that's going to change how everything's happening. So part of this whole entire system that we're looking at is Google is getting ready to release a big update. I don't know what it's going to be called. I don't know any of the details that are inside of that, but I'm predicting that it's going to be very AI driven, and they're going to start trying to keep they're going to keep trying to keep users inside of their system rather than having them go to a website to gather the information. And they're already starting to do that with some of the Gemini search that's inside of Google. So it all depends on which version of Google you're talking about. Google's still a powerhouse, but the way Google works is completely different than it once was. But
right.
you still have to make sure your Google business profile is optimized.
Right. And the other thing too is that being tied with Google, and if for some reason you violate, we talk about their terms and conditions and getting suspensions and hard and soft and all these things. But with our new aggregation process, if you have issues with your Google profile, is you're still going out to our other networks as well. Where
Correct.
before it kind of got locked up a little bit because of some of the things that happened.
It make it to where you couldn't do everything you were doing.
Right.
So that's our biggest goal is if you got suspended on Google today, which I'm hearing a lot more suspension talks that are out
And
there for
that's up
Google.
again for some reason. Any idea what's going on out there?
I think it's them trying to clean up their database and they put up too much spam inside of there and now they're trying to clean it up and it's leaving everybody hanging.
Okay, I just sidebarred you a little bit. I didn't mean to interrupt your thought process.
No,
So,
I mean, it's one of those things to where, I mean, the Google suspensions are up. So if you're suspended on Google, you can still use Listings Engine to make sure you're on everywhere else. And it can actually, in my opinion, I have no data really on this. I've been doing some rough tests, and it's a really hard thing to track data on. But In my opinion, it's easier to get a verification on Google if you're everywhere else. Because when it goes through and does its check, and I have no, I'm going to say it again, I don't have any data on this, but when it does its check, I think it checks other networks to see if
So
you're out there.
so you're saying that authority or trust level goes up if you're being seen on other networks when you're getting your with your Google business profile. Then is that what you're saying?
Correct. I think when you sign up for it, when they go through and do verification checks, they look to see is this information out there. Because when you look at everything as a data scientist, when you look at how they're doing things inside the algorithm, all these networks check each other and they're looking for consistency. It goes back to the old days when we talked about NAP and consistency, and which is name, address, and phone number, and making sure your profiles are accurate on each of the networks. And that's why it's so important to have exactly the same information, because it's going to go out and it's going to go, okay, is ABC, yeah, this 123 Main Street, is it here, 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 and here? Great, it is. We're going to give you this type of verification, or it's going to be simpler for you to get it because your information's out there. So now you have accuracy. So what I'm seeing from every single network and my prediction inside of there, and we'll talk about this in 3 months when
Yeah,
when all this kind of comes, when the finally pops all the way up. Local search took a huge change, and it took a huge event to be able to make it to where you had to make sure you were everywhere, and they had to figure out a way to be able to make sure that information was accurate to where they could deliver the best results. So that's why they're putting all these security locks on. That's why all these different things are changing, is because they have to make sure that information's there. For one, all of the networks sell your information. All the networks are connected. All the networks all do that. So it's all where you have to make sure it's there. And I mean, it used to be back in the day, we'd go sign up for Yellow Pages and we'd do it. We talk about that all the time inside of this huddle. But that information's still there. I mean, you go out to Yellow Pages, you go out to Super Pages, you go out to all the networks. And some of the networks you've never even heard of, but they're going to help you for that backlink. They're going to help you be able to grow your profile up. And all that information, I think, builds a better profile and builds a better case, especially if you're suspended on Google, to be able to make sure that you are going to be able to come up inside a search.
I agree with you 100%. And then one more thing to throw into that whole thing with the networks, and I know it's not really part of the topic we're talking today. Make sure your website matches your
I was going to
information.
go there.
Oh, you were going to go there, okay? Because I think
Yeah,
that a lot of times that is something that you control for yourself with your your website hosting people, or if you're doing your own. Make sure that that's consistent too, because if that's off skewed a little bit, it's going to cause some issues with your search being found on networks and on search as well. So,
it's it's all about keeping your data accurate across all the networks. Yeah, I mean, I used to own the marketing agencies. That's how you and I got together and how we ended up starting to do all this. And we twisted and having tools. And really, what you and I are really good at, and what we, especially me, one of the big things, or what we're both good at, it is looking at data and figuring out. I'm good at the technical side. You're good at how that information all goes through and the consistency side. You and I are kind of the yin and yang that kind of make all that kind of come together. So I don't want to make it sound that way. But it's one of those things to where that data side is so important for the business. So making sure that data on your website is right as well is huge. And that is where you can talk to your coach. We'll go through, we'll do a review on your website. You want your website reviewed? You want us to look at how that's comparing? Ask your coach.
right.
We're not going
And
to make changes to your website, but we'll make suggestions to your website.
exactly. And the other thing too is, we get all that business information, we're sending it out, and there's certain things that happen that you control that we don't change the information on. If you have a Yelp account, make sure that that matches. If you have Facebook information, those are some things that you have to actually change because you manage them. And so it's up to you
Yes
to
and
do a
no.
few things. Pardon?
Yelp we send
Right,
information to inside
right,
of our system.
right. But it really doesn't.
Facebook we can control some of that and we can
Right,
update it. It gets updated naturally, but it's a lot faster if you go in and do it yourself.
right. But I think if they actually did a name change or a little bit of a name change Even though we're submitting the information, I think they have to still go in. Am I getting that wrong? They still have to go in and
If they
make
do a
a
name change, yeah, because
yeah,
then you get that miscommunication
right. Because
because
then
it can't match A and B because it's two
right,
different things.
exactly. And I've seen that on a couple of people where they've done a little bit of a change, whatever. They just need to make sure they stay consistent on what they control as well.
And one big thing when you do that is make sure you don't put what you do inside of your business name if it's not your business name. It's only going to hurt you long term. I see that all the time when we're going through and cleaning up data. And,
Exactly.
and what we've turned into for the entire world of marketing is we're very data driven. Used to be where content was king. Now it's data. It's all that data that's there. Data is worth money. Data is worth everything. And that's the one thing you can do with our listings engine is we take that data and we make sure you go as many places as you can. It's going out and it's constantly trying to find new places for you to go and where it'll pick up on. Some of the stuff I've never even heard of that they end up on.
Right.
It's
But
crazy.
but content's still important as well. I mean, it isn't
It's
at the same level. I mean,
quality content.
yeah. Right. Okay. I-
Quality content, because what AI can't produce is it can't produce content that's in the natural language. So I go
right.
back to the whole entire thing of where that's why I love video so much, recording those video places and then being able to make your content from there.
Right. Because
And,
like you and I in this conversation, we're going to get a transcript from this, and it's our language, it's how we talk, it's how we think. Where AI may be able to do some things, but it may not be the same level. So that's why it's good to use it for a helper, but don't depend on it for your for total content information.
yep. And as Google releases things out, things are going to change. And I predict, and we can also go back to this one in 3 months and look at it and see if I'm right, which I think I'm going to be, is I think Google is really going to try to keep people inside of their search and not having them leave their search because they want them to continue to use them because they can get ad revenue from those pieces. So that's their whole entire game they're going to do, which means it's a whole different game for you to get yourself to rank inside of Google. I predict Bing will do almost the same thing, probably not to the level that Google's about ready to make the change. But Google's already released some of that stuff out to where when you're inside a search, you get an AI, analysis of the whole entire piece that's inside of what you just searched for. And if it answers your question, there's no reason to go to the website. Or if you're not a source to that information, you're going to be left behind. So it's a whole new game you're going to have to play. And that's where you're going to have we're having us on your side is where we're watching that game. We're watching the data side. So from behind the scenes inside the Simply Be Found, there's an entire data team that's all they do is look at every single data point. They look at how you're tracking. They look at how you're inside of search. We know your website. We're tracking that information. We don't provide that information because it just causes confusion. And our number one goal is to be able to help you be able to get as much done without having all the mess, and we want to keep everything simple. But if you want to see some of those reports, you can ask us and we can pull some of those.
Right. And that goes back to our coaching piece. I
Yep.
mean, I mean, we have data people out there that are looking at all this stuff. You and I look at this stuff and we interpret it and try to put it into real language, a simple language for the business owners that are asking for help, saying, I'm not being seen. How can you make me a little better with higher visibility? And that's what we do with our data team with all the information that we have. Because some of those reports get so complex that you can see them, but they may not be meaningful. So that's why we do the
Yes.
interpretation.
And it gives those points, and we go with a candid piece inside of there. But I think that's what makes us as the coaches that we handle 90. You and I handle 100% of the coaching stuff that comes
Right.
across. And you have a different approach than I have. I look at the hard data, I look at a lot more technical side and how all that kind of comes together. You look at it more as a business owner. Do you agree on that? We talked
Oh,
about that a little
I
bit
agree.
yesterday. I forget what you
But
called yourself.
right. I'm more of a how do I get this information out there to me be meaningful for the customers and for your business. And but on the flip side, you got to have both. You have to have both the data and the real world aspects to it. And that's why you and I make a really interesting combination team for because I'll get stuck on something and I'll say what are you seeing and vice versa. How would you approach it? And so we have collaboration between each other. So we get a chance to provide a different view than a lot of agencies out there may be doing, kind of thing. So
Well, and a lot of agencies don't have that. And a lot of agencies don't have access to a full data team like what we have. I mean, so not only do you and I collaborate when someone says something, but we also work with our data scientists team. We work with our engineering team. We have other marketers inside of our back end that make everything kind of go through and work. We get everybody's opinion to be able to figure that out. So when you put in a coaching piece, it goes inside of our support system. There's a lot of different people that see that, and there's a lot of back conversation that happens that ends up giving your answer. There's times that we have an answer for it. It's just a basic question. But if you're not being seen out there and your profile is having problems or you're going through a name change, there's a lot to that. If you're wanting a profile review, there's a lot that goes into that. For one, we're utilizing AI, we're utilizing multiple different tools out there. Plus, we have that whole entire team in there, which I think brings an entire piece in. So when we have like this huge updates that we're doing, or updates that we're seeing Google or Bing or Alexa or any of these, or Siri, because Siri just put out a ton, and when we see that, we're able to work as a team because we're all working inside of that.
right,
And I think it brings a total unique piece to what you have access to. And a lot of people don't even realize that's even happening behind the scenes.
right. What I love is when we disagree as a group, we agree that we disagree on certain things, on interpretation, and then we try to come up with the best solution. And it's opinion as well of what we think is going to work well. I mean, we're using the data to help, but it's some of the practical applications is an opinion on how to approach it as well. So and we learn with the businesses when we're making these coaching uh, decisions and recommendations for our
Well,
members.
I think there's that. What I think is really super funny, and why I call a lot of the Google data, which powers 90% of everybody's decisions out there, and why I call the bullshit card on that so much, is the fact that you'll be looking at something, with someone on the data team or multiple people on the data team, and I'll have it up on the screen. We're looking at the same parameters. You'll see something different, I'll see something different, and they'll see something different. It's like, how
Right,
do you have multiple different answers to the same thing?
right, right. But it's all based on your perspective of where you're coming from too. I mean, I'm looking at it
Well, I
going,
mean, we saw a number yesterday that was a 9, and someone else saw it as a 12. You saw it as 11, and somebody saw it as a 5 because it hadn't updated inside of their dashboard, but we were looking at the same parameters on the same screen,
right, exactly. So
which is absolutely crazy. It just happened to be multiple different computers, which goes, okay, or is that really how many people are viewing our YouTube channel right now? That's what it was on. And it's like, why are you seeing something different than I'm seeing? We all have the same permissions. What the heck?
uh,
But I
uh,
mean, it blows my
but,
mind.
but no, but even the perspective of the numbers is 11 better than 5. We got into that debate on something. Oh, 5 is a better rating than 11. Well, or is it? Is the higher number the better or the lower number the better? I mean, because we talked about it depends on what the data set is and what and the collection and how they're presenting it as well.
Well, and then if we toss graphs at you, if
Oh,
there's any Google graphs, they don't give any identifiers for it. It drives you absolutely nuts. Your engineering brain just goes.
yeah, I do. What's the X? What's the Y? What the hell? What are they telling me here? But but but
But
but but you look for trends. You look for changes. You look for if up is good, then that's what you're doing. Kind of thing. Some of those non-identifying graphs that are out there. So you're looking for trends is what you're doing as well.
well, and I think a lot of our members don't realize, especially the agencies that are on, or the big corporations, they can give us and say, hey, guess what? Can you tell me some good keywords to match at? Can you give me some good blog titles? We'll do it.
Yeah.
We have access to all that data.
Right.
I mean, we just don't dump it on you because of that interpretation piece. And if you guys want to, if there's more business owners that want to see more of that data that we track, let us know. We'll start to program in some of that stuff into deeper dives inside of the dashboard. But so far, most people just want to know what our opinion is. Let us go through and dive through it and provide what the keywords are.
Right. Well, most of our business owners are so busy doing their business, doing the things they need to do. They don't deep dive. They just want help with the you interpret it for me. You make recommendations, and I will make the decision if I'm going to implement it or not, because we
Correct.
don't implement anything for you. You have to do it yourself, and that's what makes us a little different because you control your narrative and what you want to do.
Correct. And I mean, it's one of those things to where then you can take some of that data, or you can take some of that feedback that we give, and you can work with your agency on it to get your, if you're working with an agency or a website developer or any of that, and you can, then you go back and you're educated, you know, this is what I should ask for. Or if you're an agency using us, utilize it.
Right?
We can provide lots of different information.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
But
but
yeah, this is some big changes, Dean, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing lots of comments on this video and just people have ideas. 90, I mean, I get that most people aren't going to do it. They're going to send us a chat message. Chat us. Let us know what you'd like to see inside the dashboard as we're making these big updates and what you're seeing out there if you're seeing something different than what we talked about today.
right. And the other thing too is we have people that say, "Hey, can you do a review of my?" And we're always inviting people. If you want to put your information out there, come talk to us. We'd be happy to talk to you on a podcast like this or a video to review your business
Yep.
as well. So, I'll just let it go with that. And I'm excited and scared. Yeah, I'm not scared. It's always change is inevitable, but as long as the changes are good, and I think there's going to be good changes for businesses to provide
I think
stability
there's
for them.
I think there's a lot of changes that are going to be good. I think it's going to weed out a lot of these different providers and agencies that aren't doing it correctly. And if you're not keeping up on the changes, you're going to fall behind. You're going to fall through the cracks because it's going so fast right now. And if you're not doing the right things to help your business, you're not going to be found, and your competition is going to kick your butt every time.
Right, exactly. And in the data piece, again, we have all these tools. Be sure and ask us about it and see if we can help you.
Exactly. Well, I think that was a good conversation for today.
Yeah, it
Is there
is.
anything else you want to talk about?
No, I want to see where predictions go because we've made predictions in the past. Some came accurate, some didn't. So I'm
I
excited.
think I'm sitting at about a 70% right now for being
Yeah,
being right on.
right. And but
But I don't
I
know. I've never put it that all the way in. We need to track that more.
no,
I'll have the data team start listening to our conversations on here more and listening to my predictions because I've
they
made a lot of them.
they like to look at numbers. They don't want to listen to you and I babble sometimes.
Exactly, exactly. Well, thanks
So
for joining us today. My name's Rob. I'm one of the co-founders here.
I'm Dean. Thanks for joining us, and you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have a great day.